This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution, and today we are here with one of our good food fighters, Kari Macknight Dearborn of Drink Better. How are you today, Kari?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing, Jamie?
Having a good day. It's I4C today, so I have to get stuck into some seminars later today. I've already got the Chardonnay out early in the morning, which is always a harbinger of disaster for me, but we'll see how that goes. Now,
Yeah,
for those
I
people,
find it hard to taste in the morning.
it's actually my honestly, through all these years of doing this, I find first thing in the morning is when my palate is at its sharpest. Also with a hangover.
Oh,
I'm serious. I'm serious. So,
right.
so Carrie, for those who don't know, would you mind explaining what you do over at drinkbetter.ca?
Well, Drink Better is a project that I decided to pursue as a second career.
Right.
We can talk about that, I guess, kind of separately, but we're importing wines and spirits, which a lot of people do. That in of itself isn't that remarkable, but we're just kind of working with really small producers in every case who may not have that much power in the market otherwise.
And what drew you towards a career in wines and spirits? Because it's a crowded market right now.
It is, and it's even more crowded since I started a couple of years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
So my entire professional life, I've been interested in wine. I was lucky enough to be an exchange student in my teens in Hungary, which was really, I didn't drink wine before I went to live in Europe. My parents
Right.
are British, and they're tea and whiskey people. My mom had the occasional bottle of Blue Nun around, Black Tower, that kind of thing. That's a pretty average Ontario wine collection for the 1970s and 80s. And when I went to live in Hungary, the family that I was billeted with, they brought me to Eastern Hungary where they had family, and I got to experience as a 17 and 18-year-old my very first taste of wine was Tokai and the dry and sweet wines of Tokai. So the introduction was pretty top end for me. And even the wines during that time, they weren't particularly spectacular, let's be honest. This is the early 90s. But the people really showed me a lot about wine, and I didn't even really know that could be a career. And I went to journalism school because that's what I had always wanted to do. Culinary school or wine wasn't really a career that I was aware of, I guess,
Right. Right.
here in Canada anyway. And so, when I pursued my journalism career, newsrooms started to freeze up. You know how that is at the end of the 90s.
Oh, perfect
Um,
timing. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
I had amazing timing from my schooling, and I got into advertising. And I did that for nearly 20 years. And I'd always been interested in wine. I've traveled all around European wine regions. As a part of Slow Food, I got to taste a ton of amazing wines on my trips to Italy.
Of course.
And in about 2016, I decided that I really needed a career change. And advertising was still for people a lot younger than me, or it was. I had aged through the process, and I didn't want to work till 11 p.m. and on weekends and for someone else anymore.
I hear you.
So
Yeah.
I decided to think about wine as a career. I talked to tons of people in Prince Edward County. We'd been going there since the the DVA rather, was created, just as trips because we're only an hour and a half away from it. So we had been going to Prince Edward County and Niagara. We started meeting people, really making friends, getting into the cellars and learning about the process, into the vineyards. We did a couple of harvests with various people. And, I said to my husband, like, I realized that my career is lucrative, but I can't do it anymore.
Right.
And he said, let's do what makes you happy, because, I'd rather see you happy than miserable for the next 20 years till you retire, kind of thing. And so I started putting some numbers together of how much I would need to make up for my career. And I realized I was probably not going to do it easily. So I
Okay.
decided I would have to change. I decided to look at it another way. How could I change my lifestyle to be able to have a career where I made less money, right? So, let's be honest, when people go to a second career, either it's for love or money, right? And
Yeah,
so for me, I
100%.
had to do it for love. And my husband has a very stable job. He's been working at the same place now for almost 30 years. He's had one job. I've had about 20 jobs, and very different industries. And so basically, I kind of cut the cord in 2017. I had quite a senior position. I gave my agency 6 months notice that I was going to leave, and they were sad but very happy for me. This is the beauty of working for people who have done what they love by creating their business.
Hmm.
They really got it. They were incredibly supportive. Many of my former colleagues have purchased wine from me. So, I was lucky to work in a wonderful place with people who just got passion. The word is overused, but they just really got what I was trying to do and why I needed to do it. And in late 2017, I left completely and started my WSET diploma. So I jumped right from heavy work into heavy school. I don't know.
Now, had you
I'm a punishment hog, I guess. I don't know.
you dove straight into the diploma? You didn't go through the
Oh,
entry level?
I did. I'd done those in the intervening years. I
I
started
see. I see.
I started them in 2014, I think.
Right.
I'd have to look at the certificates, but I started them in late 2014 and just kind of took my time. And after level 3, I was pretty confident that I had what it took to do the diploma. I have one exam left that's in October. Um, so I'm studying for that. That's mostly what's written on my board over there is all my study schedule. So
Oh, I remember that. I remember that as if it were yesterday, and that would have been, goodness me, 27 years ago now at the Glasgow School of Food Technology. Yes.
wow, good for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a long time ago. Now, with you entering this new stage of your life, this secondary career, and me saying it was a bit of a crowded market, what is the USP, the unique selling point of drinkbetter.ca?
Well, I mean, it's kind of something that I mean, it's evolving. But for me, when I started it, I felt like, and I mean, and just where we've come in the last couple of years, when I started, there weren't that many people who were importing the kinds of wines that I'm importing, and I felt that there were unique grapes from known regions. There were small producers who are only making 6, 10, 15,000 bottles a year, who needed whose wines deserved to be here among wines that were, let's just say, not as good in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to sell the wines I wanted to drink. And so, there's it seems now when you look around the landscape in Ontario that we're spoiled for choice. But even 3 years ago, it was quite different.
Now, there's an argument being made by many importers that the only way to kind of make any reasonable amount of income in the wine industry in Ontario is to go for volume. But you only recently got into the consignment program. So tell me a little bit about the struggles of working with private order and then getting into consignment and how that transition has been, particularly through this time of the pandemic.
I luckily for me, I got my consignment space before the pandemic, just before, as it
Right.
happens. And in private orders, I've been lucky to have a lot of support from people in the brands that I showed them. Now, before I opened my own agency, I worked with Paul Perugini, as you know.
Yes. Yeah.
And a lot of those brands were brands, not a lot. A few of those brands were brands that I brought to the enterprise. And so when I was kind of going off on my own, Paul was kind enough to say, well, these are brands that, you really support, you really champion. Why don't you start your business with these brands?
That's very
And so,
altruistic of him. That's you
well,
don't get many importers, bosses who would allow you to do that. That's great.
well, and Paul and I have a really great relationship. And him and I, we have quite different tastes in wine.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he realized too, that some of the brands that I was interested in were brands that he never would have maybe found or realized, and that was just something maybe he felt too, that I could sell them better and represent them better in the province. And he had a full slot of brands anyway. It's not like he was missing anything, and so what was interesting when I and the reason that I really felt supported by him was because when I decided I wanted to be in the wine business, I've almost 20 years working in the advertising business, speaking with really the heads of companies, from CMOs to CEOs. I've been in meetings with the president of Ford of Canada and the vice president of sales for Audi. I worked on a lot of car accounts, booze accounts, pharma, telco, everything. And I felt like, people, because I didn't work in sales, a lot of people that wanted to interview me figured I didn't know anything. And, I was like, are you kidding me? I won't say the agency, but I had a phone interview with quite a well-known agency here in Toronto, who was like, yeah, we just want to hire 20-year-olds who don't know anything and teach them. And I'm like, and for me, the subtext was, and pay them nothing.
Yep. No, of course. Yeah.
And so, I was
one.
like, yeah, that's not going to work for me. I didn't really know that much about sales, but I knew a decent amount about wine, just from WSET3. And I was not an expert. I have no, illusions that I'm, some magical expert on wine with that level of training and no sales experience. But I was a collector, and for many years we've collected wines, my husband and I, and purchased from agents. And I was lucky enough to kind of have good relationships. Anyway, so the ageism aside that I experienced, I just thought, yeah, no, I need to work for someone who totally gets me. And Paul posted a job on Wine Jobs Canada that he was looking for a salesperson. And I sent him a note, and I looked at his website. I realized as an Italian, he was going to understand how I understood the Italian landscape as a slow food person.
Yeah.
And so I sent him a note, talked a lot, and he called me within about an hour of receiving my email. And he's like, I can teach you about sales. I can't teach you what you already know about Italian culture and about Italian wine. That you either care about that or you don't. And so he's like, let's chat. So we met up, we had a coffee and a cannoli in Scarborough. And that was pretty great. I wore black to the interview, so I was covered in powder. He didn't care, he didn't even notice.
Oh, right.
And yeah, and we had a great time. We chatted for about an hour, and he's like, yeah, you're hired. It was that easy for me. And I thought, okay, I can do this, because I was worried I'd quit my advertising job and I was going to be like, ooh. And I worked a bit at the time too for Joel at Chalk Slate Gravel. He was also someone who understood me, and and I thought, okay, what is it with these sort of smaller companies actually understand someone scrappy who maybe has transferable skills. The big agencies in Toronto didn't understand me at all. And so that today I still feel that's true, that they don't understand outside of a certain kind of employee. And I've worked for big advertising agencies and small ad agencies, and the exact same thing is true in that world as well. There's a very different kind of person that can survive in a small business and take on a bunch of roles and wear all the hats, so to speak. And so for me, being an entrepreneur is pretty natural because of that reason.
So I mentioned your USP. What is it that differentiates you from all the other agencies out there? How do you go about choosing the producers that you work with?
I realized I didn't answer that question. Sorry
that.
about that.
Yeah, I'm getting back to it. I'm not letting you get away with that.
I wasn't avoiding it. I just, as I want to do, I went off in some random other direction. Yeah. I should know that, you're, as an interviewer, you know how to get me back online. So basically we're, our kind of mantra is farms and families, not factories. And for me, it was really important for me to sell wines that followed my value system. And that's the way with being part of Slow Food for so long. You can say brainwashed, indoctrinated, whatever you want. I've been really
indoctrinated.
Indoctrinated, there we go. I eat a certain way with respect to certain types of producers. Yes, I will eat a McDonald's breakfast sandwich. I'm not a zealot, but once in a while, but I tend to really support small farms. And for me, that was a natural way. It had to be involved in my business, because my previous life was like, you will sell and promote what our clients are in the agency.
Yeah.
Whether you care about their business, i.e. Coca-Cola, or you don't, right? So USP for me is that, I know all of these producers. I've talked to them. I've invested my time and, in them. And so the USP for us is that we're trying to promote small family farms, which we believe is actually the best type of farming available, whether you're growing grapes or rutabagas or asparagus or whatever the heck you're growing. And these are people that really care for the land and have passed it down through generations, or it's the first generation, in some cases in my portfolio. So that's, if people are looking for a way to kind of really live those values, whether or not the people are entirely natural in terms of the wines that they sell, the intention has to be there to be, the stewardship of your land. That has to be your best intention. And for us, that as people are whatever process or whatever place they are in getting to that place, that's where we support them.
Kari, thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution today. Over the coming months, we're going to be speaking with a number of your winemakers. We've spoken with Judith Beck, one of my favorite, more natural producers. A wonderful lady. And yes, we'll be introducing a few of your producers over the coming months. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Bye for now.
Have a good one, Jamie.